Awesome. So welcome, everyone. For those of you tuning in, I'm Michael Naylor, and I'm the director for the Maine Enneagram Center for Transformation and Wellbeing, and I'm located in South Portland, Maine. And today I have the pleasure of getting to talk with Patrick, a beloved type 6, who I just sense is awesomely prepared for all of whatever comes, and will rely on his intuition. And so just thank you for being here. Really, it's so awesome to have people come on and share their story. I find it very moving, and I always learn something. So I want to just maybe say a little bit about how you started on this Enneagram journey and how it progressed, and what's been valuable for you.
Yeah. No, happy to. And thank you so much for inviting me
Absolutely.
to be here with you today. It's an honor to have this conversation with you. I mean, you were one of the first people that I found out about the Enneagram with. So you were one of my teachers for the first training session. So
That's right.
That will definitely come into play here.
Yeah.
I was first introduced to it in gosh, it was the late 90s, early 2000s. My brother and sister-in-law, who I believe you know also, had introduced it to me. And my first reaction was, get away. No, thank you. It wasn't hostile, but it was definitely a not really interested. I was really fortunate in the early 90s. I was working for a farm store chain, which was very progressive in its leadership. And so they gave us books. Like the very first book they gave me was Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective Leaders. And they put me through some leadership training programs. And so we did the Myers-Briggs, and we did the DISC, and we did the Big Five, and we did all those things. And frankly, I found them lacking. As they're interesting and they were kind of fun to play with, introverted to extroverted and things like that. But I also found them kind of shallow and frankly not dynamic enough to explain the intricacies of life. And so when I heard about the Enneagram, I was like, oh, it's just, I lumped it into the same thing and said, oh, it's the same thing. Right. Yeah. And that was kind of my first taste, my first introduction to it. But my brother and sister-in-law found a lot of value in it, and it really helped them through some tough things. And so fast forward about 5 years, I was going through a very difficult time in my life. And as I looked back on the things that had caused me pain and suffering in my life up until that point, I noticed there was one common denominator. Hello, me. and I thought, I don't want to keep repeating these same mistakes and causing this heartache for myself and the pain for others in my life. So let me take another look at this Enneagram thing. And that's when I also started reading a lot of Richard Rohr at that time. This is probably about 15, 18 years ago. And started going to some conferences. And then Dan and Karen, my brother and sister-in-law, got their certification. And I thought, I'm going to do that. So that's when I met you at the very first training session. That was in Atlanta, I believe.
Yeah, I think it's Simpsonwood Retreat Center.
Yes, at Simpsonwood. And that was my first, I guess, official real training, other than reading the books and things like that. And I remember leaving that whole training week, and you all warned us about this. I was raw. I was just like an onion that had been peeled back and raw. And I remember coming home from that and just kind of ready for being open to knowing about the things that I needed to work on in myself. And it was just so helpful at the time. And so from there, I ended up progressing, and I went into the second training and the third training, and ended up getting certified officially. Spring of 2018 is when I got my paper.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. So maybe share a little bit about the agony and ecstasy of your life as a type 6, and from the unconscious unawareness of patterns to resurrection and all of that, if you would.
Yeah, and onward and continuation of.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Being a 6 is such an odd contradiction of ping-ponging things that are going on all the time. And so it's really hard to kind of put your finger on a 6 and what they're thinking and what they're doing, because as soon as you do, they're going to go the opposite way.
Yeah.
It's like catching Jello with Teflon gloves. It just keeps slipping away. Trying to get a handle on it. As a kid, I was a 6 with a 7 wing, big time. My mom and dad were very social in the sense of partying. We lived on a little lake, and they always had people over. And in the winter, we had people over going ice skating and singing songs, and in the summer, we'd have people over swimming and skiing and doing all kinds of activities, like playing volleyball. And I had a wonderful childhood from that perspective of we always had people around, and there was always something going on. And we would sing songs and stuff like that. And as a small 6 with a 7, I really embraced it. And one of the things that I remember doing, though, is I wanted the attention, but I didn't know what to do with it once I got it. And I've got another brother who's a 3, and he's fantastic at just spur of the moment, spontaneous, very funny, very energetic, outgoing. And I was always like, gosh, how does he do that? I can't figure out how he does that. But as a 6, we have a connection to 3. And so I kept feeling myself get pulled in that direction, right? The path of disintegration. And so that's kind of how I grew up, was with that 6 with the good 7 wing. And I was a buddy. I was best man in 4 people's wedding, and I had good friends,
Yeah. Interesting. Well, so that that fixation, sometimes we call it the fixation, the head center's tendency to worry or catastrophize or prepare, some over prepare or prepare well. I mean, what's been your experience with that dynamic?
Obsessive preparedness for sure, for sure. And it looks good to the outside world, right? I've even thought about this. So I'm a professor at a university, and I still do it. I did it for this meeting today. I still do it, and it looks good on the outside. Like the message is be prepared and do your due diligence and do your research and what could come up. And crisis communication is all about this type of stuff of what could happen, and so be prepared for it, right? I can do that. Yeah, I can do that, right? But here's the problem. Here's what I find out. What happens when the marker that I brought in that day doesn't work, right? And what happens when the item that I've got prepared doesn't work, right? So what happens is you don't have trust in yourself. So you place trust in systems, you place trust in others, you place trust in structures or disciplines or whatever it is, because I can't put trust in myself, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm not enough. I won't get it right. I'll fail. And I'll do it in public in a really big way, and it'll be disgraceful, right? And so all that pain and suffering comes in. So how can I do anything I can to avoid that?
Yeah. So it sounds like you have a not so friendly inner critic that reminds you that
Yeah,
at any moment you could be cut off from humanity. So
yeah,
there's a conversation that we carry on a lot around this idea that for type sixes, when they start to develop quiet mind, that they panic, like it's too quiet, and if I'm not worrying, I'm not prepared. But with practice, one begins to trust it, and the conversation leading towards, if I develop skillful quiet mind capacities, then I can start to trust my intuitive sense. Now, never mind that might take 4 or 5 lifetimes, but certainly where we sometimes point to as a possibility. So what's been your relationship with that kind of meditative, contemplative practice and coming to quiet mind? How has that gone for you?
better now, better these days.
Yeah.
But I've worked really hard at it. I've worked really hard at it. To continue a little of the story, so I grew up as a 6 with a big 7 wing. I shift and morphed to a 6 with a 5 wing
No.
as a young man, and into my 30s and 40s, and I still pretty heavily into 5. To find the knowledge as structure, as help, as aid to answer questions. And while knowledge won't get you there, any of them great mystics will tell you that, it's the finger pointing to the moon, right? It's helpful, and you can follow some of the advice and go, okay, at least I know where I need to go now. And so that led me on a path of going to the living school from the Center of Action and Contemplation through Richard Rohr. And I just finished 2 years there. And as we were mentioning earlier, probably the greatest thing I got from that, aside from all the wonderful knowledge, which was like, I love that stuff, was practice, was actual practice. And that's really what they preach there is it's action and contemplation, but you foundation of practices. And so that has really blossomed for me in the last 3 years or so. So I've got a daily meditative practice that I do. I start with Lectio Divina, a reading of some type of I don't necessarily do scripture right now, but I may do poems like Rilke or Mary Oliver or something like that. I'm also reading The Cloud of Unknowing right now and using that as my Lectio. It's great. And so then after I do a little bit of reading, I'll spend about a half an hour in silence. Well, it's not really silence. I have a little bit of music playing in the background, like to kind of help me. And that has been amazing. Now, I will say I tried this 5 years ago and it didn't go so well because my mind, my 6 mind was so neurotic that I was caught up in all my thoughts about 5 or 6 years ago. And I kept playing out these not good enough thoughts, not whatever failure, all of the crap that we do to ourselves, right? All the wonderful, lovely things we do to ourselves. But this time was different. And it's been really helpful. There are some other things I do. I try to do a morning gratitude practice. And these are all things I've added in increments over time. It's not like I woke up one day and was like, okay, I'm going to add these 10 different things. It's been, I'm going to do 5 minutes of meditation. Well, now it's 30 minutes, right? And I'm going to do a little bit of reading. Oh, I found, that this helps. So those are things that have helped me. I play guitar almost every night, which I find to be, maybe it's distracting, but I find it also to be helpful and kind of centering. And
Awesome.
Yeah, so those are some of the things that I do now. And before this session, my mind's still going crazy. I'm still a flurry and a flutter and anxiety and doubt. It's not like it's not there,
Mhm.
but there's a different option now that's a little bit more accessible if I'm present to it. And sometimes I can turn the volume down. Not always, but
Mhm.
it's been helpful.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the emphasis on actual practice because as I've been doing workshops over the years, if I ask people, how many of you have a practice? A lot of them don't raise their hand. And so it's like, I think we build enough information in our head center until we finally go, if I don't start practicing this, this isn't going to be much good to me. But so we make the shift, but it's such a significant one. And I think you point to something that can be true for people when they first start. Like I've got several type 6 friends, is when they start trying to meditate, it says, my brain rules. I cannot, I do the practice and it just goes and goes and goes. And then it sounds like at some point, something shifted for you and it became accessible, which is hopeful.
Yes. Yeah. You're going in and out a little bit on me from audio, just FYI.
Okay.
But I caught the gist of what you just said there.
Okay.
So I'll tell you a little bit of what changed for me, at least I think. How do these things work?
It seems like you put 15 things together and then something's working. Yeah, I struggle with that all the time. Like, what was it that really created the shift? But it happened. Yeah.
It's I don't want to be like all magical woo-woo, right? But there is a mystery here, and there is something. There's a knowing beyond knowing kind of that happens here that we can tap into. And it's not like the color of a knowing is very clear. It says your mind can't get you there.
Right.
But your heart and love can get you there. And so one of the things that shifted for me in this is I started doing, I suffer from social anxiety disorder, which is, I'm sure, part of the 6 dance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so part of the social anxiety disorder is the fear of public humiliation, kind of a thing, of being in public and not trusting myself, right? Not trusting the moment. And so I think 5 or 6 years ago, when I would go into these practices, those are the types of things that would run around. 2 to 3 years ago, I started doing, there's some meditative work by Adyashanti, I think is how you say it, where he talks about love. And he has this beautiful meditation where you imagine love as a light coming in, almost the way I picture it is like a golden liquid light coming down onto my head and just embracing me and holding me like a hug of love, right? And when I started to do that, something changed. Something was like, I became more lovable to myself. As the ineffable showed somehow its love on me.
Yeah.
All of this is beyond words. I don't know if that makes sense. But
it does. It's pointing to that mysterious something that comes through that one can't really put words on. I can tell you, I can feel it, and I'm grateful. But when it arrived and how it did so, well, it seemed like there was about 45 different things I did, and then something opened. It's like, thank you. So it is a mystery. It is a mystery. And if I knew there was one thing that could change it all for somebody, I'd be a trillionaire by now, right? But
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
They joke and they say you can't attain it by achieving by trying, but you don't get there without trying. It's like right?
That's right. So yeah. So it's a mystery. But so yeah, that's a beautiful image too. It sounds like it really touched something deeply in you. So, as one of my teachers said, if picking stones up on the beach wakes you up, keep picking the damn stones up. Doesn't matter, it's working, right? So maybe it'd be interesting, like you talk about social anxiety, and of course the passion of the six, or the kind of heart trauma, is worry, or the panic-stricken heart. And so I wonder if you could say a little bit about your journey with that, as how that impacted you early on, and anything that really comes to mind that you think is useful to talk about.
I mean, so as a young man, I had the real fear of public speaking, but I always described it as like a moth to a flame. I was terrified of it, but I loved it. I was terrified of it, but I loved it.
Yeah.
So it was like I wanted it, and part of this was like I said before, I shunned it to three a lot, especially in my younger years. So it was like this playing with fire type of a thing that I knew I'd get burned, but I kept getting drawn back to it. But something happened in my mid-20s when I started shifting to 5, and I was becoming, more professional, and I was, out in the real world, and I was trying to live up to expectations and climb that corporate ladder. I started to really struggle with my confidence in public speaking. I was good at it, but it terrified me. I had one of the executives at our organization say, "You're one of the best public speakers in this organization," which you would think I'd be like over the moon on, right? It made it worse. It was like, oh, I can't screw up now. I put all this more pressure on me, and the more you do that, the harder it gets to become good at, and you create. It's a self-sabotage type of a thing, which 6s are known for also. And so it was this hypervigilance that was just always there, and a fear of messing up, and a fear of not looking good in front of others, and missing connection, or not, losing a reputation, or whatever it is. I actually wrote if you don't mind, I wrote a poem about this.
Yeah, please do.
I wrote this a few years ago, and I think it does a pretty good job explaining it. So the poem is called Anxiety. And here's how it goes. Vigilance is always there, like a high frequency sound only I can hear, or an incessant buzzing, white noise on the edge of consciousness, growing in intensity, in times of doubt or stress, like fuel on a fire. Over the years, though, it's become more like a cantankerous lover, some of its urgency gone or diffused or not at all that important, or I've loosened my grip, or its grip has loosened on me. Still, it's familiar in an odd way, and I've grown accustomed to its presence. In better moments, I hold it and feed it love. In worse moments, it sucks on fear and avoidance. This paper tiger calls mind its home as it stalks my heart, echoing deep, roaring fear in the caverns of my belly until the calls reverberate to my soul, absorbed in the ground of your being, the love you have made of me. It's like this incessant little, always kind of there. And when I'm lucky, when I've done my work, I can turn the volume down, but it's still always there. And when I'm able to kind of turn that volume down, the silence, the guidance that you were talking about earlier, is more accessible. It's always there, right? It's not like it's more there. It's just more accessible.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that poem. It's very beautiful. I'd love to. Is that in your book that you?
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, what's the name of your book?
It's Whispers of the Ineffable. I guess I'm backwards, aren't I? That's not unusual.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. So that current, like 6s have described it like it's like having an electrical current that just starts streaming
Mm-hmm.
And one Sikh said, yeah, I wake up in the morning and it's the first thing that greets me. And then I start looking for
Yeah.
what in the world could match this anxiety. And so I started anticipating that possibly a tiger may come to the front porch today. So I start preparing for that. But, it just said it just grabs my thinking center and I start, some kind of protection, right?
Yeah.
So that
It is. And the thoughts trigger the emotions, and then the emotions feed the thoughts, and it's this downward spiral. And I've talked to myself, and I've told other people who have this, the quicker you can catch it as the process starts, the more likely you are to be able to kind of cut it off. But it's hard because it feels real. And I think in my thoughts, right? I think these things are happening and real, but they're not.
yeah.
And if I can get to a point where I can kind of step back and look at the thoughts as I'm not my thoughts and I'm not my emotions, that's helpful to kind of go, oh, it's just that little, it's that little vigilance going on again. It's the passion state. It's the head state going on again, the fixation again.
Yeah.
Okay. But that's not who I am.
Yeah. Well, I think you point to the challenge is it registers as a fact. Like this is a fact. It's like the inner critics over there going, this is a fact.
Yeah.
Bad shit's coming. I'm telling you, can't you feel it in your body? It's similar for the four. I will have envy movies, right? Someone will go by and it's like my inner critic goes, oh, they have the best life that you don't have. I don't even know them, right? They could be suicidal for all I know. But it's like, oh, it's true. And then my heart drops. And then if I'm awake, I can go, oh, it's just another visitation from the spirit of envy. Come on in. And, and then I can relax and it doesn't, I don't jump all the way in the movie, right? I can pull back, which is good. But for years, early on, I lived in the envy movie, it just felt horrible. So I'm grateful for some freedom around it. So it sounds like when you say if you can catch it soon enough, is that, do you mean like I spot it, I notice it? Oh, there's the anxiety thing. Take a breath. What is?
Yeah, what's interesting is it happens to me more when I'm alone. But you can be alone with a bunch of other people, right? So I can be in front of a group, but I'm still alone. So I don't mean that in a sense by myself. Maybe when I'm disconnected. And when the reel is playing, the loop is playing, and I get caught into it, right? But sometimes there's that grace that's kind of like something kind of clicks and goes, wait. Wait, don't tell. So what's going on here? And there's the point there that at my best, I might be able to breathe into and kind of let go of some of it. Not always, right? Not always. There's also a point, like for me, I flip a switch and go to 3. I used to do this a lot in my 20s and 30s. First of all, the world rewards it. The world loves a 3. The United States loves 3s, right? A good-looking 3 who's got presentation skills and can do this. Oh man! And I unconsciously recognized that, and I could kind of make it happen because I'm a sexual subtype and a 6. So I can look a lot like a 3. But man, it's an abandonment of my heart. And it's a sad place for me to go nowadays. But it used to be the show, Patrick, the flip a switch, Mr. Showtime is here, right?
Yeah.
But now it's a sad place for me to go because it means I'm totally given up on myself, kind of.
So it sounds like you get really identified with the presentation and lose contact with your heart. Is that what happens?
Yeah, 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 yeah. It turns into presentation structure of razzle dazzle that I happen to know how to do
Mm-hmm.
through training and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That comes on in a flip of a switch.
Mm.
And it's not that it can't show up in an authentic, genuine way, but you can tell, I can tell, people can tell. People can tell when you're authentic and genuine or not.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it's a pretty, I always see these patterns of, protective mechanisms for keeping me safe if I'm being scared or I'm going to be abandoned. And so it sounds like you shoot over to 3 and you
Yeah.
do that thing, to keep yourself safe, but it's automatic. You doesn't sound like you have to go, I think I'll go over to point 3 now and just do this.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it just it developed over years and years and years, and it was what I was rewarded for through, corporate America kind of thing. And so it's what I did. But there's also a point where it becomes ineffective. Number one, because it's disingenuous. Number two, because the fear's never gone. The anxiety's there. And I don't know if this is true or not, and maybe you can help me here, but it appears to build up. And so the more you kind of do that and shut it off, the more it's just kind of building and building and building. And so at some point it's going to come through and break through.
Yeah.
And you can't razzle dazzle yourself away from that. Right?
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
Well,
it sounds like it gives at least temporary relief, but it's still knocking on the door, right? And
yeah.
and yeah, so that's it. So I wonder, we have the conversation about for the 6 going to the healthy point of 3, which we call the missing piece,
Right.
which means, being able to show up authentically with open heart, and able to, in a sense, follow my heart's true desire, and so it's not so much a performance that I'm doing, but an expression of my heart and what I love. And I imagine you tap into that from time to time.
You and your fellow teachers at the first training made me bawl
Oh,
when that came up.
huh.
When the missing piece came up, because I didn't know what was coming. It was my first training session.
Yeah.
And it's the end of the week, and I'm already just raw because we've gone through everything. And the missing piece was brought up. I bawled. I bawled when the 3 missing piece came up because it resonated so deeply with me. And I gotta say, I'm right now, I'm sensing a connection between that love meditative thing that I just talked about and the missing piece. And it's the first time it's kind of connected with me. It's some type of compassionate love. Glory is the missing piece from the 3, from what I remember. But it's not a glory as in I'm all this. It's a love. It's a love glory. It's a connective, all is love kind of glory thing. And yeah, oh man, that is just so deeply resonates within me.
Yeah. Well, I think of a couple things coming to mind. One is the song "And We All Shine On." It's that sense of we all shine on. It's kind of like glory, glory, hallelujah. We all shine on, and it reminds me of my wife when she was working at the Montessori school. There'd be little healthy 3s who would come in, and they'd say, "I'm here, and I have a song to sing, and you guys come up and sing with me." And it's like this sort of celebration of human radiance and love and connectivity. But that kind of that resonates for me a bit with the higher aspect of, that radiant self that inspires everyone to, be in that radiance. And yeah, so when that touched you in the training, I imagine it was sort of touching something you knew was there but hadn't heard it spoken, or something along those lines.
I suppose. I mean, I think, as I think of a resonation, that's kind of what I think of as but I didn't consciously know it. And
Yeah.
somehow,
It
right?
got in there. Yeah. Yeah.
Somehow y'all brought it out of me. And it's akin to the Ram Dass, I am that. That is, I am, right? I am that. Somehow I am that. And as a weak, insecure six who's always afraid of screwing up, or always afraid of looking bad, or always afraid, it's like, no, there's this power, not like the
Mm.
8, but there's a power and a glory and a depth of beauty, all of the 9 characteristics, right? That are
Hmm.
all poured in somewhere in here, right? And all of us, and it was just like,
Mm.
it broke me. It broke me open.
Mm. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Thanks for the memory, the reminder. It's
Yeah. Because
so
this,
easily forget,
yeah.
right?
And I think when we're going, let's say 6 going to 3 in the less healthy aspect, it's really kind of a reminder that there's something there. I just don't know how to get to it. And right now I'm just discharging my fear, finding a way to survive, but there's something else calling me there. It's not, and sometimes we'd say that as you develop more compassion for the less healthy aspect of the 3 and really develop unconditional kindness towards that it wakes up the higher aspect. So, that's always the drill, I think, for all the predicaments we find ourselves in, that something about accepting and seeing the pattern brings something, lights it up and starts to, in a sense, melt its hypnotic power over us somehow. So, yeah, so anyway, that said, looks like you're having some thoughts there.
Yeah. Oh, my mind's always going. But what you just said reminded me of, instead of persona first, essence first,
Mhm,
right?
mhm,
As I'm flipping the switch to 3, the nervous energy is in charge and running the show. The robot shows up.
mhm.
Um, but if it's flipped, if essence can be tapped into and brought to the forefront, the persona kind of steps back and disconnects a little bit. You're right. It's more the virtues and the graces and the missing pieces that show up. Yeah.
Well, I think one of the things that my teachers often says is, when some mechanical part of you jumps on the stage, you could just hug it like an abandoned child, rather than, oh, there's that bad pattern, I hate that pattern, and judge it, but go, oh, there's one of my children running out into the street. Well, come on back in, man. It's okay.
I
So
love that.
yeah, it's a helpful perspective. So
It
yeah.
is. I love that. I love that, the children analogy. Yeah.
Yeah, they're all out on the street today. I don't know. I may not get
Uh,
them in the house tonight, but we'll get them in the morning.
that's
Uh,
great. I
well,
love
so
that.
so when you think about your growth and evolution as a 6, I wonder if you're looking back at a younger self,
Hmm.
or other 6 that you see struggling. What might you have said to your younger 6 when he was getting caught up in patterns, or maybe you just wait until God comes through you and then it'll be okay. I don't know. I mean,
I don't know if I had done it any other way.
yeah.
I was so, the sexual subtype energy and the sickness and the fear and the shunting to three was so in control.
Hmm.
Um, I'm not sure I would have listened to much. Although, one of the things I'm just reminded of is I wanted to be a good boy. I mean, like sixes, my understanding is that we want to be good boys and girls, right?
Yeah.
And so maybe the contemplative path of practice seems to me to be the linchpin for all of this. At some point in my life, in order to be healthier, to recognize the self-awareness of recognition of the crap that I'm doing, and then the practice of silence and sitting and lectio and mantras and
Mm.
having gratitude practice, and those are the things that somehow turn the dial down.
Mm.
I don't know if I would have been ready for it. I don't know if I could have done it as a younger man because it was just so much in control.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what I hear though is it is possible to transform those very powerful patterns. Of course, when I first learned, I read Don Risso's description of the Type 4 back in 1996, and I thought, this is awesome. I should be able to get this handled in 2 weeks. It's just going to take 2 weeks. I just got the whole map, right? And then in the fine print, it said, you will change very slowly. It will be like crawling on your hands and knees up the mountainside. But
Yes.
the good news is everyone else is doing that too. So don't be discouraged. But
Yeah.
yeah, so just I think one of my Zen teacher friends said, this Enneagram stuff's good, but there should be something on the cereal box that says, this takes a lot of time, or you're not going to, eat the cereal in one sitting, and relax and easy does it. And that's really true. There's a, it's been slow, and but I'm a sexual dominant, and being fast makes a lot of sense, and that had to be relaxed quite a bit before the deeper things started to occur. So would you say a little bit about how you notice that intensity instinct, or how you've worked with
Oh
it?
man, yeah. It's the life juice of this thing here, this being here. Right? It's like, man, where's the juice? Yeah. Uh, it's constantly it's like it's described that antenna's up. It's always up. It's always noticing. It's always catching something. Whether it's image and appearance and the how somebody looks and how somebody presents themselves and the voice and how it comes across and how people say anything and their movement, that too. um the music, listening to music that just grabs me, and having the fire in the fireplace and having the candle going and having just the right wine for the night, or the right bourbon, all right, for the drink, and smoke. Don't just take it out of the bottle and pour it. No, you got to take the piece of cedar and you got to fire it up with a little torch, and then you got to put the glass on top of it, and you got to smoke the glass, and then you got to have this type of bitters, and you got to have the exact right Marciano cherry, right? It's the whole juice of everything in life where, yeah, man, it makes just taste a little bit sweeter, right? But it also drives me fucking crazy because it's always on. It's always on. It's just, ah. It's exhausting.
Well, yeah, I can relate. The first half of my life was basically being run by it every which way it pointed. And at some point, I had to change my relationship to it so I wasn't so impulsive. But yeah, for myself, I had a track record of relationships only lasting 3 years, and then not enough excitement, then not enough excitement. And at some point, a teacher said, that pattern is not working for you. Have you noticed? I said, you mean the forest that's been burnt to the ground back there? You're talking about that? Yes, I am. So, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
it's like a bling, like, oh my gosh, I've been doing it to myself this whole time.
yeah.
Yeah. There's I can't remember which part of the Enneagram this was. The harmonics or hermeneutics talk about when I do something wrong, I give myself grace that, oh, I just made one-time mistake. When you do something wrong, I blame it on your character. I love that song. Well, it's U2's How Long Must I Sing This Song, right? How long must I sing this song? Ah, yeah.
It's a great question. It appears that it may take several rounds to
Yes.
well, look, let's shift a little bit to the point of integration, the nine, going to nine where the hobbits live in their comfortable houses, and there's a grounded, easygoing Fred Rogers there waiting, saying, "Come over here, calm down." So what's your relationship been to moving in the direction of nine?
It's that place that we talked about earlier. Well, let me say this. Let me back up a little bit. I've seen it as weakness.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah.
Right. It was my egoic
Mm-hmm.
operating system going, no. You need to go back to 3. That's where you get rewarded for, this. And so it's been a struggle for me of saying that, the path of integration is 9 here. But as I say that and I reflect upon it experientially, it's the same process that we were talking about earlier of breathing in and finding that inner peace and guidance where you pause for just a few minutes and rest in it and realize I don't have to react to it. And that's a big part of sexual 6 for me is I don't have to react to what is bubbling up in me right now, thought or emotion. In fact, I'm probably going to be much wiser if I don't. Let me just hold that thought because it's likely not accurate. Let me hold that emotion because it's unlikely that person did that to get me, or to do that, to trigger me. So where's it coming from? So that's been a helpful question for me in a 9-ish kind of way is, where's that coming from? Where can you just hold that and let that be for a little bit? Or another one I do is, that's interesting. Like, where's it coming from? Where's that coming from?
Yeah, like you get curious about it. Like,
yeah, becoming curious about it instead of being tying into the justification of it, or even sometimes the explanation of it. Right. So it's not a why as in, let me trace back the logical why is this happening. It's more of a, in the scheme of things, where is that coming? Where is that bubbling up from? Why is that coming up for me? What's the trigger that's coming from me that's
Hmm.
making that happen?
Hmm. Yeah. Well, so I think about, the nine energy and being gut centered type. And of course, we always talk about the three centers. And
Yeah.
so I wondered for you how you've, put attention on your gut center and, sensing the body and all of that good stuff. What you do to nurture your connection with your body.
That's a great question, Michael. I would say I've not been great at that. The meditative practices help me to do that by focusing on my breath. And I do love the Enneagram practice of breathing into the body, sensing the heart space, and what's the taste of the moment, and then opening the mind to let the guidance or wisdom come in. I love that. Um, I'd say I probably got some work to do in terms of the body sensation part of things. I like to get out of the head using the body. Like I love pickleball,
Oh
and I
yeah.
love
Yeah.
stuff like that. It helps me get out of my head. But I don't know if that's a conscious thing or not.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking of, in the Diamond Heart work and the Gurdjieff work, they always have the conversation around learning to bring attention into the body so that your ability to sense the four limbs and the trunk and interior of your physical being, that story is that it creates a observation tower inside of you so that you can begin to feel your reaction patterns, and it gives you a way of seeing them more quickly. So it's one avenue, and there's more than just one. But uh, so when you did the part one, two, and three, there's always that bringing attention into the body, sense your feet on the floor. That was always a good one. But I just wondered if you had what you had done with that, or if that's like a work in progress, because there's only 900 things we could do to become enlightened.
Yeah. I think I'd mark it up to a work in progress. It's not something that's necessarily conscious work for me. Like I could probably tie it to the Lexio and tie it to the meditative practice I do in the morning and the breath work, but I don't necessarily do. I don't. It's not
Consciously do it.
intentional that way, if that makes sense. So I
Yeah.
think I may be doing it, but not like consciously doing it.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Um, uh, One of the things I do every morning is I roll and stretch. So that's a body practice, but it's not necessarily a rolling and stretching and going, okay, sense my hamstring right now. I'm not necessarily doing that,
Yeah.
that's really interesting.
Yeah. Well, so I'm curious about this rolling thing. Like, what?
So yeah, so 2017-ish, right around there, and a couple of other times in my life, I've got a little bit of back issues.
Hmm.
Um, and I was the typical weekend sports male who didn't do any stretching or anything like that, but I expected to go out and play tennis and do all these things. My hip flexors, which I didn't even know what they were at the time, said enough, and so I couldn't walk at times. Literally couldn't walk at times.
Wow.
I had to get a cane out.
Hmm.
I was walking, like I could walk from this side of the screen to this side of the screen in 30 seconds or so. I was just barely moving.
Oh.
And I said, I better get a hold of this. And so I did a little bit of research, a little bit of work. I met with some different folks. I met with a surgeon who, guess what they wanted to do? Surgery. Um, I've met with a chiropractor, I've met with a physical therapist, and did some other stuff. And basically, long story shorter, came up with my own practices that I do every single morning now. I do a stretching and rolling exercise. It takes me, if I do it continuously, it takes me about 20 minutes. It doesn't take
Yeah.
very long. But
Yeah.
oh man, it's changed my life
Awesome.
actively, yeah, totally. And
Awesome.
you know what? That stuff affects the mind and the spirit and the heart and all that. So I was in a bad place when that was not working.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Well, so any other thoughts you'd like to share about your Enneagram journey? Highs and lows, or things that have really been important for you?
Hmm. Um, it's a work in progress, right? I mean, for me, it's definitely a work in progress. I don't pretend to have the answers, and although I'm so thankful for what I've learned and the experiences I've had. I consider myself a long ways to go, and enjoying the ride a little bit more these days. Which is it's kind of like playing tennis or playing guitar, where, like you said, it takes a long time, but all of a sudden, once you get a couple of chords or once you are able to hit
Mm.
that ball over the net, hey, I can play tennis now. But up into this, before that, I was just kind of hitting the ball around, where it's like now I can actually be in the game and play a little bit. So
Yeah.
to be at that point, uh, still has its unforced errors and mess ups, and yet it's helpful to be able to have that practice. One of my primary teachers is Dr. James Finley, who used to be a novice under Thomas Merton. I don't know if do you know
Yeah.
him?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, he's beautiful, beautiful.
Mm.
He says, if you're faithful to your practice will be faithful to you.
Mm.
And I have found that to be true. I have
Yeah.
definitely found that to be true.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I thought things would proceed a lot quicker on this journey, but one thing that always cheered me up is one of my friends would say, Michael, if you haven't apologized this weekend, you're just not paying attention. And I thought that's way too true. That every week, but there's something about abandoning an idea of how quickly I should progress. It seems like when that got dropped, the things just started to happen on their own in positive ways that I didn't know existed. So something about getting my hands off the storyline about, what a redeemed four looks like. Well, nobody knows. I don't know. I just know I'm here today. But I wonder with that shooting to type 3, if you've ever had that spirit of I got to get there quick and I got to be the best at this and be a shiny, recovered, spiritual object. And is that ever transfer into that kind of thing for you?
Only when I'm breathing.
you know.
Yeah. Father Rohr says something along the lines of, you need a good, humiliating experience at least once a day.
It's too true. Yeah.
Same type of a thing, right?
Yeah.
And as a 6 with my 5 wing, it's easy for me to isolate. I'm good at isolation. I can be by myself. I like being by myself. I got my guitar. I got this. I got that. That's not a good place for growth. Because it happens here. I'm feeling more growth in this conversation right here, right now, than I've had all day sitting in my chair reading holy books. Right?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I like that's one humiliation, one humbling experience a day. That Richard Rohr is so awesome in that way. That kind of grounded truth. So are you involved at all with what's it called, Solarize, where the men come together in October? Have you done any of that?
I look at it and think that looks really cool, but no, I haven't gotten involved with that yet.
Yeah.
I think it's fascinating though. There's some great stuff that they're doing.
Yeah. They've got their I think 4 or 5 day retreat out in the wilderness. I hope to do that at some point. So
Let me know. Maybe I'll go at the same time. That'd be fun.
yeah, that would be fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, look, it's just been a pleasure to be with you, and I hate to let you go because just get these little bits of wisdom, and then so if you've got any parting thoughts for the world or other sixes, or a good type 6 joke, they always come up with great jokes.
Well, the one that always jumps in is why is 6 afraid of 7? And it's not because 7, 8, 9. It's because 6s are afraid of everything.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Yes. No, this has been great. A real pleasure to have a chance to talk with you. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be with you, and hope to connect with you again in the near future.
Let's do it. I would love it.
Okay, my
All right.
blessings.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.